How can I tell if I'm way too lenient with my teen? Hi, I'm Dr. Paul Jenkins, a child and family psychologist focusing on positivity, and I'm wondering if your teen might be thinking you're way too strict. I've got 3 questions that you can ask yourself to get a handle on this. Here's the first question to ask yourself. What is my agenda? Now, your agenda is your purpose or what it is you're trying to accomplish. What I've noticed with a lot of teens is that they get frustrated with their parents who are trying to control them. I still remember this 15-year-old kid who was sitting in my office. He's got his hat on backwards. He's over in the corner. He's all defiant. His mom had dragged him in there kicking and screaming. And I asked him, so what's the problem? And he almost came out of his chair as he said, "She is trying to control my life," pointing at his mom. I go after his mom. "What's the deal? You're trying to control his life?" She's like, "No, I don't want to control his life. I want him to control his life." Where are we on that issue? Ask yourself very sincerely, what is my agenda? Am I trying to control their life? Do I want to change their behavior? And if you do, that's okay. I just want you to notice it because that creates a dynamic that is really important to be aware of between you and your teen. I can tell you this, if you're trying to change their behavior, then no matter how you present your awesome parenting positive ideas that you have, they're going to feel manipulated. They're going to feel that you're trying to control their life. They can smell it somehow if that's your agenda. So let's just be real about that. The fact that we're even asking the question, if I'm way too lenient with my teen, implies that there are some outcomes that I'm working toward and I'm not getting those. This is another common thing that I hear from parents in our coaching programs. I've tried consequences and they don't work. Well, what do you mean they don't work? Usually what you mean is it's not changing my kid's behavior. And that reveals what our agenda is. We're trying to change their behavior. And like I just said, that's okay. That's okay. You just need to notice that that's what it is. Now, I'm going to give you a tool that's going to help change the conversation around this, because when it comes to consequences, appropriate consequences for our teens and their behaviors, it has to be based on their stage of moral development. What I'm referring to by stage has to do with a model that I share in our parent coaching programs. And I'll send you a PDF of this. You don't have to try to write this down in your notes or anything. drpauljenkins.com/stages. The URL's on the screen right now. Go grab your PDF copy of this so that you can refer to it as we're having this conversation. The stages that I'm talking about are stages of moral development. What this means is the reasons we make our decisions or why we do what we do. Stage 1 is a very immature stage of moral reasoning. It's all about selfishness, being self-centered and always focused on me, me, me. It's what I want, and it's demanding too. It's what I want, and it's now. Give it to me now. Stage 1 tends to be characterized by fighting or yelling and screaming to try to get what you want. Does this sound familiar to you? When our teen is in stage 1, you'll see from the model that we split control. We share control with our kids. Parent control is on the top part of the model. The kid's control is on the bottom. So I'm thinking back to this kid who was in my office. She's trying to control my life. Probably because he's showing her stage 1 maturity. And he was. He was fighting with her. He was being defiant and manipulative and selfish. He was sneaking out at night and he was involved in all kinds of unsavory activity, including drug use and questionable activities with his friends. Okay? Mom saw that as stage 1. So when your kid is in stage 1, you have to take more control as a parent. That's consistent with the model. What about stage 2? Stage 2 is when they stop fighting and start cooperating. All of a sudden everything just changed, didn't it? Because if your kid's cooperating with you, how much easier does your job get as a parent? And you can back off on the control. So are you being way too lenient with your teen? I don't know. If you're not taking enough control when they're on stage 1, then you're not being strict enough with your teen. And probably you are being way too lenient. On the other hand, if your teen is showing you stage 2 maturity and you're still controlling everything and clamping down and trying to manipulate them, then probably you're being too strict. You're not being too lenient. See, it depends on the stage of your teenager. We're not even going to talk about stage 3 because that's when you become truly responsible. Okay, and you care about things like service and empathy. Empathy, where you understand and care how other people feel. It really matters to you. At stage 3, you're doing the right things for the right reasons. And nobody calls me up and says, Dr. Paul, you got to help me. My kid is so mature. Doesn't happen. So when you get to stage 3, you just smile a lot. You back off on the control. It's impossible to be too lenient at stage 3. Because they're controlling their behaviors and they're doing it in a responsible way. So discipline is not needed. It's all self-discipline. It's all about the stage. Whether you're too lenient or not depends on their stage and your appropriate response to that, not on your mood. You're not being controlling just because you're a control freak. You're being controlling because you have a stage 1 person that you're dealing with. That will make all of the difference. Now, before I get to those other 2 questions that will help you to determine this, would you just take a moment, if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button. Look, you're still here. This is making sense to you. You want to be connected to what we're doing here on the channel, so hit the subscribe button. Here's the second question that I would invite you to consider as a parent. Do I judge my success or my effectiveness as a parent based on their behavior? This is a toughie, okay? Because when you see your teenager doing stage 1 things, you might conclude that you are not doing a good enough job as a parent. That's why I want you to ask the question, do I judge or evaluate my own effectiveness as a parent based on their choices? This is dangerous ground. You don't control their choices. And when you try to control their choices, you're going to get into a troubling dynamic where you're in control battles all the time with your teenager. Look, you're a good parent. Can I say that again right to your face? You are a good parent. How do I know this? I'm a professional psychologist, trust me. I've seen examples of bad parenting. I used to be hired by the court to go in and do parental fitness evaluations or child custody evaluations. I know what I'm looking for. The fact that you're here, the fact that you're watching this video, that you're still with me, tells me that you're a good parent. Will you just settle in on that thought for a minute? You're a good parent. Now, I know your brain's going to kick in and take a swing at this. It's going to say, yeah, but my kid is doing this or that. I know. And that's up to them. Notice, if they did everything you wanted them to do, we wouldn't be having this conversation, would we? It's not up to you, apparently. It's up to them. That's a hard jump to make, but ask yourself the question, ask it sincerely, am I judging my effectiveness as a parent based on their behavior? Let's get real about that. All right, now here's your third question. Am I truly detached from the outcomes? This is something that we really get into in our advanced parent coaching, is detaching from the outcomes. This is not easy. Because when you love your kids, and that's your job, okay? Your job is to love them no matter what and even if. That is your job as a parent. We could end the whole video right there, but we can't, because when you love your child, what do you want for them? Think about it. All you really want for them is their happiness, their success, right? And that's something you can't claim for yourself. You can't just make your child be happy and successful. You can't. And when you try to, it just frustrates you and makes them mad. So we're not going to go that direction. We have to detach from the outcomes. And here's a good little rule of thumb. Somebody has to be attached to the outcomes. If it's you, it's not them. And that creates a problem because they're the ones that control it. Okay? So as a parent, this is a strategy, not an easy one, but as you detach from the outcomes, you get to smile more. You get to have more peace. You get to have more confidence in your position as a positive parent. And it's not tied to their outcomes. Now, here's an extension of that question. When we're attached to the outcomes, sometimes we avoid giving consequences to our teen because it makes our life more miserable. This gets back to the model that I shared with you. Do you remember? The control and maturity model, when we're on stage one, look over here on this side of it. When we're on stage one, the space above the line is the greatest. That means that the parent is doing most of the work. And when you've got a stage one person that you're dealing with, yeah, it's a lot of work. I used to work in a secured psychiatric facility for teenagers. This is where parents would check their kids in, or sometimes the police would check their kids in. For secure confinement, we had locked doors and padded rooms. It was staffed 24/7. This is a lot of intervention, but when someone is really on stage one, it requires a lot of intervention because they're not cooperating with us. So going back to the question, am I avoiding giving consequences to my teen because it makes my life more difficult? And just ask yourself that sincerely. It's part of that third question that has to do with being detached from the outcomes. Am I truly detached from the outcome? Am I prepared to do the work that is required if my teen chooses to be on stage one? So going back to our original question, am I being way too lenient with my teen? Maybe. It depends on their stage. And if they're on stage one, you probably are being too lenient. It requires a lot of control and intervention if they're really on stage one. If they'll cooperate with you, that's when we need to really work more with them and involve them in the conversation. If you're on stage three, it's not even possible to be way too lenient. They're controlling it. They've got it. Just as a final thought, keep in mind your job is to love them no matter what, and even if it's not dependent on their behavior or their stage, you're going to love them no matter what. If your agenda is that, to love them, then you get to show up with more confidence, you'll have more peace in your home, and the interactions with your teenagers will begin to improve because of your choice. You've got this. Was this helpful? I hope it was. If you felt this was helpful, watch that next video. 5 things every parent of a teenager needs to know.